Thanks for the invite. And what a start to this session. We've seen Kendi and Juan, sharing some very insightful presentations, which actually have sort of built into this panel. My panel is on fire. But before we even go there, just a quick, the development of eGov systems, that enable citizens to interact with government online, has brought about a focus on the management of citizen electronic identity. Identity management becomes a key issue in the electronic world, where government systems need to prove citizens' identity in order to access, to give access to the government services. This is what both Kendi and Juan were talking about. How do you authenticate that? How do you know that this is really Harry? This is Harry that is actually requesting for this kind of service. So citizens, citizens of such systems also need to establish trust and confidence in the online services to avoid problems that can arise with phishing and all these insecurity issues or cybersecurity threats. So these are some of the issues that we're going to discuss in my panel. And so allow me to introduce you to my August panel. August, because these are hard hitters all around, and people who've been there, done that. So we're not, we have the best minds that can discuss this kind of subject. So maybe I can give my panelists a minute or a minute and a half each to just introduce themselves, starting with Dr. Getao.
Good morning, Harry, our moderator, my fellow panelists, and all those watching from near and far. My name is Catherine Getao. I'm the outgoing CEO of the ICT Authority. Thank you, and I look forward.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Ari. Then we have Dr. Yonazi.
Hi, Harry. Good morning, and good morning, everybody there, my fellow panelists. My name is Jim Yonazi, the Deputy Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Information, Communication, and Information Technology in Tanzania. Happy to be with you here.
Excellent. And we have my brother from another mother, Innocent.
Thanks, Harry. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on wherever everybody is. My name is Innocent Tungizi. I'm the CEO of RISA from Rwanda. And it's always a pleasure to be part of the CIO of East Africa.
Excellent. And last but not least, Louis.
Indeed, last but not least, Harry. Good morning, everyone. My name is Louis Mireti. I'm the regional sales manager at Fortinet East Africa. And I look towards supporting public sector and government business, among others, in Fortinet.
Excellent.
It's my pleasure to be here, and I look forward.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So let's take it from the top. So we've had the presentation from Kendi and Juan, and there was a hint of ID or digital identity being one of the key issues around e-government. So let's try and pack this for our audience. What is identity management, and why is it important in e-government? Maybe we can start with who wants to take it first? Yeah, go ahead, Kate.
Yes, identity is important not only for e-government. One of the first things that happens to you after you're born is your parents name you so that they can differentiate you between you and all the other children and pets that they may have in the house. So identity is a very basic thing, but it becomes even more important when we start doing official things which must be related to us. That is, obviously, when you do an examination, you want the results to be specifically related to you. When you own a piece of land, or you have a job, or you earn a salary, or you have a bank account, you want that asset to be linked specifically to you and not to any other person. Of course, the issue comes about in the world of electronics is because there's some risk involved because the old-fashioned way of knowing whether somebody is somebody becomes more complicated once, number one, there are a lot of people involved. So in your family, they can happily call you daddy or mommy or baby because it's just a small number of people, and when somebody says daddy, they know exactly who is being referred to. But when you go to school, obviously you are now in a bigger community. And now in the world of digital, you are now talking about billions of people who each have to be individually identified. The second challenge is the electronic nature means that somebody can pretend. In fact, I think they have a name for it, the young people on social media. They talk about having a persona, meaning that you create a false digital identity for yourself, which is quite different from who you really are. And you can take this further where you try to take on the identity of somebody who has better assets or better reputation or better something than you, and you try to steal their identity. So I think in a simple way, I think I've tried to explain that identity is important, whether in the digital realm or outside. And I've just mentioned two of the challenges of digital identity.
Excellent.
I'll stop there.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Unazi, do you have anything to add on to that?
Thank you very much, Harry, and thank you for the contribution. Identity is quite important because government services are provided to those who deserve the services, and they are provided and facilitated in such a way that resources of the public are being used to generate and to offer the services in such a way that it is important to provide the services to those who deserve the services. Therefore, identity is key. That's why it is important to know who is deserving to obtain and to own a passport or to own land and other services of the public. Therefore, it is important to protect identity of the citizen. But again, in the current world, we have seen identities being used otherwise. And therefore, it is necessary for governments and public agencies to make sure that the identities are well secured and preserved to those who deserve them. I'll give an example. In Tanzania, currently we have many services provided to citizens, and therefore the national ID is key to get the services from the government, but also to get products from the government. At the moment, if you want to buy land, if you want to connect to water, electricity, the national ID is quite key. Therefore, the government has the responsibility to make sure that those who have national ID, the genuine national IDs, are the ones who receive the services they deserve. Just in a nutshell, Harry, I'll end up there.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. Innocent, I want to come back to you because there's quite some progress in Rwanda around digital identity. Can you just tell us something about that and also, just add into this discussion?
Thanks, Harry, and I'd like to echo what Itao just mentioned. I mean, frankly, if we did not address identity from the beginning, frankly, it just shows that we are just fools. I mean, a child is born and is given a name to differentiate the child from another child, right? So identity is one of the fundamental basic rights, if you will, of any human being that it should have. So in that respect, it has to be done very, very early on, or importantly, done well, and you have to put in mechanisms to prove that Harry is Harry, because the editor mentioned the persona. Recently, there was actually followed a tweet, a thread on Twitter, but there's this guy who masqueraded as a woman, and actually I was being dated by some guy and got to the point of proposing, and later then I found out that this is actually another guy. So, I mean, that's how bad it is. So, really, identity is very important. But now, digital identity for that matter, or ability to really prove that I am who I claim to be, and I'm not masquerading as someone else, is very important. So you really have to start from the basics, where you identify every citizen, and you allocate that immutable identifier to say that, yes, I am innocent, who claims to be innocent actually, and Harry is Harry, and so on and so forth. So in Rwanda, we've done the basics, the groundwork with everybody in Rwanda up to more than 93% has an ID, a national ID. Even children that are born in hospitals right now are registered at birth, so that when they get the 16 years of age, they're able to get the ID that I can be able to use different services. But even at birth, they get an identifier. They have a name, national identified number, which will identify them. But now we're taking a step further to really navigate that level where, because you will find in different national registries there are different identifiers. If you go to land, then land system registry, you have an identifier. If you go to a bank, you're going to have a bank account. If you go to a social security fund, you're going to have another identifier. But what is that one single source of truth that ties all these together? So that is what we're jumping in. Of course, it requires a number of different steps. Number one, you have to have laws in place that really provide guidance on how that is going to be done and who does it and when and how. You have to put in place instruments that provide authentication mechanisms. You have to make sure that what are the processes and mechanisms to be able to collect all the data from all the citizens, and find out what sort of data actually are you collecting, and what are you going to use it for, and how are you going to keep it safely and securely. So basically, those are some of the steps that we're embarking on.
Excellent, excellent. And I think the concept of many different identifiers in different places, I think that runs across Africa. And I know, I don't know, maybe later Dr. Getao can tell us about Huduma number, but I'll ask that a bit later. But coming to you, Lewis, you are in the tech space, and you are in the security and authentication space. What do you see as the major challenges for identity management, especially for government and public organizations? But you can also put in, you can share your views on why actually ID is important.
Okay. So let me pick up from what the opening has been a pretty strong one. I have to agree. It sets the pace. And I was still at the end wondering, then how do we in business, or how do we as partners to the various governments in East Africa then jump in? And the answering the question on what challenges we're seeing there, and in my view, the challenges really emanate from how the business systems have been set up today. It's Innocent who has said, the various, let me call them entry points to government services, could be the revenue authority, could be, the Huduma number you're talking about, could be passport or the identification card, right? And how they're set up. Those are different entities. And even if you're to break it from a systems perspective, and, individuals within an organization who have to worry about how they connect to the network or connect to servers, connect to directory services, for example. And then in my head, two challenges can manage identity that resides in various systems or in various agencies that citizens will have to interact with, without necessarily affecting the users or the administrators or even the developers for the applications that the business will use to interface with the government. But further on then is the damaging security breaches that we've seen today actually come from compromised user accounts or group of users that have been given inappropriate level of access. So it takes me back then to basics around how systems are set, and say then the answer would lie in what? In AAA, right? And AAA is authenticate, authorize, and obviously then audit or account for whoever is accessing these services, or wherever we are giving these services as government, whoever the government is delivering their services to, we have to authenticate that they are the correct people, that they're the correct persons, that they're intended, and that, we can be able to go back and actually confirm that is what we, what is there. But what is not lost, in my view, Harry, and the team, is we've seen that investments with our government in terms of how we're offering services, how government is offering services, and I speak this as a partner to government as well as a consumer of government services, right? So the challenges are twofold. Is basically how do we ensure that we manage the identity, and by the way, when we're speaking about managing identity, I think it goes back to even how we set this one up. Is how do we manage identity itself and also manage access of the same. So it's identity and access management, right? So and I believe we shall be able to deliver that as we go forward.
Okay. Interesting. Dr. Gitao, you were in the middle of all this stuff. What would you say? What did you say were the key challenges in identity management? If at all there were.
I'd like to say that Kenya has a long history of identity and identity management. The first ID cards were issued 110 years ago, in 1911. And then in 1978 is the time that we had the first electronic component. And this is when we issued the national ID card that had a biometric component. And then it was about 2 years ago when we started the chip-based Huduma number. And all these were efforts to improve the management of identity. Of course, when you're managing identity, first of all, you have to choose what the process of registering an identity is, because that's the first point at which the problem can occur, because people can be deceptive even at the point of registration, or they may avoid registration. There are some communities where they don't, believe in registering their children at birth for various traditional reasons. And actually, here in Kenya, for a long time, only about 60% of children were being registered at birth. That has improved with having more hospital-based births because the registration process is facilitated there. But, the right there, how do we register can become an issue. And of course, as a government, you want to make it as easy as possible. Registering your mobile phone is very easy compared with registering your child. So maybe it should be just almost the same level of of complexity or lack of complexity. Simplicity is the word I was looking for. Then there's the issue of the continuous day-to-day, the choice of parameters. What are you registering? Of course, we know the name, the surname, the gender, which sometimes changes also through your lifetime. The many countries choose between 6 and 10 parameters which they believe are key to your identity. And I think recently we've added to that by saying we can add some biometric components, which may be your fingerprint, your iris. Some even talk about gait analysis, the way you walk, and other biometric features. But this has some pros and it has some cons, which I won't go into, both practically and technically. Then so have you chosen the right parameters? And are you able to manage those parameters? For example, if you choose biometrics, is it possible that at all the points where this person will have to establish their identity, there will be technology that will enable them to establish their identity biometrically? And even issues like if you lose your data, you can't change your fingerprints. So if that is stolen from you, how will you recover from such a disaster? It's not like changing your ID number or changing your ID card. Your fingerprints are more or less fixed. Then there's the issue of dealing with anomalies and updates. For example, you may define gender as a fixed field. So when I'm born, it is decided that I'm a female. Now, if later my gender changes either by choice or because, there are a few people who have some hermaphroditic features, which means that at some point in their lifetime, they say, okay, all along we said this was a lady, but actually it's better to define her as a man. Or if I go for a change, now what happens to my identity? Am I able, and you remember, I think there was a court case in Kenya about this. Am I able to go and say later that I have now changed this, even though it was a fixed field, and you have to change it because I'm no longer of the gender which is reflected? Then how do you manage? And I think this is the one which perhaps everybody is alluding to. One, yes, in Kenya we have an ID number, whether it's the Huduma number or our old ID number, which actually cuts across, because even when you go for your social security card or your hospital insurance fund, somewhere there's your ID number. But is the technology in place which enables these systems to talk to each other, both to check the identity and confirm it, and also in real time? For example, if I go into a hospital, I have an accident, and I don't have my NHIF card, can I use my ID card as an alternative? And obviously, if the systems and the middleware is not in place, I can't. So it doesn't help me that my NHIF card also referred to my ID card, because I physically have to have that particular card present. And I think this is what technology is trying to change, so that perhaps even one day just going with my eyes will be enough to give me all these services.
Okay.
So I think I don't want to be comprehensive. I'm sure others will have something to add. So I may add a little more later.
Okay, thank you for that. Dr. Yonazi, I know Tanzania, I think you started the ID process a bit later than Kenya. I remember there was a whole agency that was responsible for ID management. How has that been in terms of managing identity, and what are some of the technologies that you guys have been using to secure citizen identity and also citizen data?
Thank you very much, Harry. Yes, the agency is called the National ID. It's called NIDA, National ID Authority, and it's the one that is dealing with.
So, Dr. James, did you copy us?
Identity management for you.
It's okay. Continue, Dr.
Hello, did I miss something?
No. Innocent is quipping at you, saying that, did you copy Rwanda?
I think we share knowledge and technology, so it's okay. We are East Africans, so I'll be happy to share with you, and you also, I'm quite happy that you can also share with us what you have for the development of our people. So going back to national ID, the Eastern Authority, yes, it is an agency of the government that deal with national ID. And Dr. Gita mentioned a very important issue about currently development on using biometric measures to store IDs. And I think it's quite important at the moment because, for example, in Tanzania, we have a very long border, if you wish. We have 8 countries bordering Tanzania. And not only that, we have a global village. So you can have somebody sitting somewhere very far, masquerading to be Tanzanian, opening a business, affecting people in Tanzania, thinking that this person is working from Dodoma or from Dar es Salaam, selling some items and people sending money, collecting their precious earnings and sending them to this person. And all around you find that this person does not exist. So the national ID currently is trying to address that. We still have a big challenge at the moment because we are not only identifying people in Tanzania, but we have to protect people in Tanzania, of course in East Africa, with the possibility of having people pretending to be East Africans or being Tanzanians and enjoying the benefits of such a region. At the moment, there are a lot of services that are available online and are still affecting our people, and they do not require or demand the identification, proper identification. You can imagine the services that are available on social media, and currently they don't demand any kind of a proper identification. You can just open your account, go online, and do the business that you want to do. And that will affect the people in the area that you're targeting. And in such sense that it's therefore important to protect these people and having proper identification. Not only that, but again, even the agencies also, they have a challenge in such that they have to protect the collected data from access from people who are not privileged to such data. Mm-hmm. And therefore, currently is a big business in the world, and we have a big challenge in Africa, but again, not only in Africa, but again, around the world, that people can hack the systems and obtain system data. Therefore, it's another challenge that we have to deal with at the moment because of development of technology, but again, advancement of knowledge. I know that we have very brilliant young people in colleges and also innovators, people who just want to try the systems and see how they function. So it's another challenge that we have to deal with as a government.
Okay.
So, yes, I'll get back to you.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. Interesting about NIDA. Now, Innocent, very briefly. So how different is your agency from what Tanzania has done? And also on top of that, is there a need for some kind of a joint strategy among states in ID management? I'm just throwing it out there for anybody to pick it.
Harry, I think the question is not how different. You should say how similar that is.
Exactly. Thank you, Dr. Jonas. And the institutions are pretty much similar because our agency is in charge of identity all the way from it started by in 2007. That's when we rolled out national ID programs. And it does exactly the same kind of work now that it's spearheading the single digital ID rollout, and it also takes care of civil registry and vital statistics. You know, according to UN, there are 9, so including birth, death, divorce, adoption, and so on. So they're also rolling out that kind of program to make sure that when people get married, they are registered there and then when that action is taking place. When a child is born, they do that at the hospital. When somebody dies, then deregistered or registered as deceased in the system, so that you're able to keep a good track of all the citizens and national population as things change in their lives. Now, Harriet, your good question of a need to sort of work together, absolutely. I mean, if we are talking about integration, regional integration across the continent and even beyond, if I come to Kenya and I carry a Rwandan ID, I should be able to, a Kenyan authority needs to identify me that I am actually a Rwandan citizen as I claim to be. And if I go to Tanzania, the same thing, or across the continent. Therefore, and that's why initiatives like Smart Africa Secretariat are spearheading a single digital ID initiative for the continent. And I think that the is spearheading that as the blueprint of flagship program. But really, we need to get to a conversation where, as countries, we really have that conversation. Because we have cross-border businesses, we have different services. I go to school in Kenya, or go to school in Tanzania, or Uganda, or Southern Sudan, South Africa, or anywhere. Whenever I am there, or if I go to get medical services anywhere, I really should be identified as that citizen of that country in a non-repudiable manner. So, yes, there's that serious need for conversation. I know it is happening right now, and it is taking place. Actually, there's a blueprint that AU was consolidating, and comments and views from different African countries. And I think there is a ministerial council that is going to take place sometime before the end of this year to look into that program. But really, it has to take place at the policy level, at the program level, but even at technology or at integration level. We really need to define all these parameters in a secure, efficient, and coherent manner, so that whatever we talk about CSTA, then it is real. If I'm going to order goods from anywhere on the continent, then they should be able to get delivered to my doorstep, safe and secure.
Excellent, excellent. So we have one question for Dr. Yonazi, and I'll give you just 30 seconds to respond to that because we've run out of time. But it's Sayu Abend who is asking, who says, I like what Dr. Yonazi said about technology, sharing technology. These are very much in place globally and can be leveraged in the public sector as well. What are your comments on the challenge of enabling infrastructure?
Well, I think that...
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a good... Yeah, it's a very good question, and that's why our governments, I believe in Rwanda, in Kenya as well, the governments are investing a lot on infrastructure, enabling infrastructure. And just to mention, in Tanzania, we are in a very big program to make sure that we roll out fiber across the country. But again, also we use the mobile technologies to provide services. So it's necessary, it's imperative. We cannot go without it. And therefore, we have a lot of investment and projects to make sure that technology is available to enable digital identification, but again, to provide services to citizens. And I believe this is the trend across Africa, because we cannot avoid technology, we cannot deal without digital services, and therefore our infrastructure is quite key.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Yunazi there.
I hope that was 30 seconds.
Yeah, it was more, but it's okay. We'll square it up later. So
it's counted.
So Lewis, quickly, just give us your closing remarks, because the director is shouting in my ear. So very quickly, your closing remarks. Then we go to Kate, then Dr. Yunazi, then Innocent.
Okay. So let me pick up from the conversation, and we're bringing multiple entities of government together. But I guess two questions come to mind. Is, can existing multiple points then be focused and narrowed? And if so, how can they be defended? I want to beg to provide my guidance around this and say the issue really lies on two things: is authentication and is on single sign-on, something that Fortinet is a leader in what is loosely being termed as zero trust network access.
Excellent. Dr. Gittel, your closing?
Okay. Yes, I have a lot of hope for Africa, because in a way, the fact that we don't have all these long-established systems is a strength. So I believe we can now collectively use our intellect, our good knowledge and application of technology to be ahead of this world, not only in the area of identity, but also in the area of infrastructure and applications. So let's get on with it.
Excellent. Dr. Yunazi?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Our people need us. Technology is pushing us ahead. Demands of our people in terms of what services they want is pushing us as well. So let us do the best of ourselves to provide what is expected out of us. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Innocent?
So let's get the hell out of here, stop talking, and go do what we're supposed to do. Thank you.
Oh my, I think that's the best closing. Let's go do what we need to do. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time and thank you for your insights. Really enjoyed this session, and I'm sure the audience has also picked some nuggets out of this. So I will close. Thank you, guys. You can continue. I've seen a lot of discussions going on the platform. So please continue engaging. Continue talking to the speakers. Some of the speakers are also online, so you can continue with the discussion as we move to the next session. And with that, I want to close this and say thank you and kwaheri.